All right, my name is Colin Farrar, and we are Team 5. We did the microgrid energy system. And next up, Matthew is going to be talking about our overview here.
So our overview for today, we're going to be focusing on the flow analysis, electricity, people, transportation, potential solutions, our decision matrix, industries, and our next steps. Gonna push it on over to Cordell. Or no, back to Colin, I'm sorry.
All right, so for the flow analysis, this is kind of how we identify our obvious and non-obvious materials like people, electricity, light, vehicles that are actually flowing through the system that you might not see firsthand. It could be what goes on behind the scenes. And this actually allows us to see what's important and what could actually affect the performance of the system. The top three that we've concluded to be electricity, people, and transportation. So the first one, electricity, this is really like the driving force behind the system. This is what makes it work. So it's collected through the solar panels. Obviously, electricity is not collected, but the sun's energy is, and it's stored into the batteries, and then it's distributed to the necessary sources. So down here, the three pictures, I have kind of the whole process. Solar panels, moving on to the batteries, it's collected and then stored. That kind of looks like an arena, practice arena. So that's kind of the three steps. And this system is actually self-sustaining. So, I mean, it doesn't need to be run off any gas system or generator. For people, you have truck drivers that actually deliver the shipping container, a forklift driver to unload the container, or you could have like this that I found online is a side lift truck that you could just have a driver and then he unloads it himself. You have service technicians to install, dismantle, and service the system routinely to make their, I don't know, maybe they have a monthly PM, a service time. So that's really all the main points for the people. Transportation, without this, it would not actually be called a transportable system because it's transportable, but allows you to deliver to and from jobs quickly and safely. And essentially, what Mr. Boyd had told us was they essentially rent out the system, they get it delivered, and then when they're through with it, they send it right back to the home office in New Braunfels. So for the service technicians, I would assume that they are using trucks like an F-250, working in the field. You know, they got to have a big beefy truck, carry all the tools. And then for the actual container, I would either say they use a side lift truck, like in the previous picture that I mentioned right here, or a flatbed to unload it, or a forklift just like this. But there's a lot of different options that you can go with. And these side lift trucks are capable of lifting up to a 40-foot Connex trailer, but we use a 20 by 8 standard non-high cube container. Next up, we're going to have Cord Kaleffel.
Okay, so I'm going to more of the potential solutions. It's not really a solution, but these are, because we really don't have a problem with the thing, but with the product. But these are some of the advices I would give to help us really take our product over the top there. Going to more proactive marketing. What I mean by this is really getting out, making those connections, and just trying to find a way into a company or some way to sell our product. And then spreading information about TerraVolt. Like I said, like proactive marketing, just getting out, talking more about our product and what it does. And this will help people understand our product and figure out if it's right for them or right for their company. And then making those connections, we think is going to be big. Like marketing through conventions. I've looked up, and there's a few really big microgrid and electrical conventions around the United States there. And we believe that if we could get TerraVolt into these conventions, there will be a lot of opportunities there to make like these connections. Just to go on with it, proactive, and then go on more on proactive sales, making sales calls to all these companies around that actually think we need to sell to, that actually need these microgrid systems. And repetition, not giving up after the first sales calls. Actually, I've had a class, and that was an ag act that really pushed on repetition of making these sales calls and trying to find that connection and finding that way in to a sale. Now I'm going to turn over to Matthew there, and he's going to talk about our decision matrix.
I'm going to go a little bit into detail about our decision matrix. For our decision matrix, we categorize the 3 categories as audience, potential sales, and the need for this product in the industry. We also weighted these categories relative to how important we saw them. The 3 industries that we're going to be focusing on are military, construction, and oil field. For the military, we ranked the audience a 4 out of 10 solely on the purpose that at the moment, we're only focusing on the U.S. military. The potential sales, we ranked a 5 out of 10 because although the military might be very interested in our product, they're typically a little tedious, and it's a little harder to get contracts with them just due to their strict budgeting issues. But they do really have a need, which is why we ranked it a 7 out of 10, because most of the time they're stationed in remote locations where electricity might not be as reliable. And they have very important systems that run on electricity, such as drones, communications, satellites, mapping, all sorts of things of that nature. Also, next we have construction. The audience, we ranked a 6 out of 10 for construction due to the vast number of construction companies out there, which is why we ranked the potential sales 8 out of 10, because the more companies that are out there, the better we have to make our product known. And the word of mouth can get around between companies that have once heard about our product. And then we ranked the industry need a 7 out of 10 because a lot of these, well, not a lot, but some of these job sites for construction, they can be in remote locations. And if you're having to power a job site with multiple diesel generators, it can get pretty expensive if the energy source is not reliable. With our energy source, it's pretty self-sustained and reliable, so you can even finish jobs more efficient if one of the problems you're having is a reliable energy source. Lastly, our last industry is oil field. We ranked this one a 6 out of 10 as well, due to the vast number of oil field companies. Potential sales, again, is a 7 out of 10, just due to the greater amount of companies. We can able to get our product out there more with conventions, and even just talking to companies. Maybe that company can talk to a different company, and maybe that company might have a need when another one doesn't. So that's one way we can get in the door. And then the industry need is also going to be a 6 out of 10. Kind of the same issue that the construction field had, remote locations, unreliable energy sources, things of that nature. Next, I'm going to be handing over to Josh to talk about industries.
Alrighty, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on kind of how we think this decision matrix affects this project. So we're kind of taking this decision matrix as more of a priority list instead of exactly how we should go about a solution. Since the engineering team is doing a physical solution with the container and designing it, we think this is more of who our targeted sales audience should be. So with the construction, there is over 700,000 companies in the United States that do construction. This would really, obviously, a lot more fish. You're going to have a lot more catches. So this equipment is going to be easily moved by these construction companies. They already have the equipment needed to do so. It could cheapen the cost for them as well as cheapen the cost for us. It would, allow us to not have as much equipment needed just to get them the product itself. Also, construction is more of a short-term job. They're just there at one location for, depending on how big the build is, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So they're only going to need these containers for a short period of time or relative to the project. That allows them to kind of fit into the more of the rent category of sale. We're still working with the Bean team, trying to figure out exactly how that system's going to work and operate. The exact numbers we're not 100% sure of, but we're fairly certain that system will be able to function. The oil field is kind of the same story as the construction field. We feel that they have already got all this equipment needed to go out to these rigs out in the middle of the Gulf. They're also a global company or industry rather. They only have about 9,000 oil companies here in the United States, but obviously there's a huge market globally for the oil field. This kind of applies to having shipping container ships and stuff like that be able to go around the world and distribute these containers to them as needed. Going back to kind of what Matthew said with the military, he talked about how it's a little bit harder to get in with them and get contracts with them. That's mostly because of the U.S. General Services Administration. You have to make an account with them and get approval by them and get the permits needed through them, which is a pretty tedious process and just a lot of paperwork to get through in order to get approved to even make a sale to the military in general. The military is kind of in the same boat as construction, the oil field, with equipment already owned by them that is able to move these containers. That would definitely help us out a lot, but it would also help them out a lot considering they have these big cargo jets. They can offer relief to nations that have been hit already by natural disasters and things of that nature. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot smaller of a pool of people and sales that could possibly be made. So we definitely feel that our priority list should definitely be construction, oil field, and then the military. Next, I'm going to talk about our next steps we're going to be taking here for the next meeting. The next meeting is going to be Tuesday, March 30th. It's going to be the same time, 9:45. And we're going to be talking about our economic analysis and our official recommended solution. So we'll be working with the Bean team more, figuring out the exact numbers and what the perfect distribution should be for this product. Any questions?
Okay, let's ask the client. Haas, do you want to make some comments or have any questions?
Just a few. Just to comment on the content for your final presentation. Ask me for the original photographs. It looks like you probably downloaded from the website, so I can get you some better photos that'll work for your presentation. The business model that you should probably be looking at is also the rent versus buy. We don't just rent them. We sell them. And by the way, we rely on third-party equipment lease companies to actually own and lease them out. So we sell them in all cases to others directly. I like the idea of the conventions for the microgrid. Could probably use a couple of 3 really good salespeople to do that for me. So that's something to consider in the future. And I like the idea of the proactive sales. Of course, we try to do that anyway, but it's a lost skill set to be able to actually sell to people directly. The sales to the military, I would suggest you change that to sales to the U.S., state, and local governments, because government in general could use these systems, and that includes FEMA, Border Patrol, and others that operate in remote locations. So I wouldn't just limit it to the military. I'd generalize it a little bit more. The systems are transportable versus portable, which means they could also be set up at a permanent location and never moved again, or they could be set up, operated temporarily, and then loaded up and moved. But they're not what I would call portable. Portable systems are pretty much trailer mounted, and you can pick up and go on a moment's notice. These have some assembly required. We have actually looked at GSA as a selling medium, but we do have the option of selling directly to government agencies outside of GSA. So just keep that in mind, that GSA tends to deal in pens and paper and bulk items that,
I found that out.
everybody can use. And you're absolutely right. They are a pain in the tail to work with and get on board with. And these systems may or may not be air transportable. They're not really designed to go fit the specifications for military airlift. So generally, you're probably looking at shipment by boat. If you're in the Navy, they don't like to call them boats. They are ships. And that pretty much is all of my comments. I thought it was a good presentation. A lot of good information came out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Haas.
Thank you.
Let's go with Team 7, your comments.
Marvin.
Yeah. Probably need to mute.
Oh, sorry, my
Jacob,
bad. I thought I was
ready to
muted.
talk.
Sorry.
Okay, Team 7, your comments, please.
I'll jump on really fast. I thought that as far as just complimenting goes, you guys are really comfortable presenting. It's easy to listen to, comfortable to watch. One of the questions I had, somebody had just briefly mentioned servicing these things, and I just was wondering, is this something that needs to be serviced on a daily way, or is it maybe as needed? If somebody could just jump on that a little bit.
I think
you can go ahead, Colin.
I think it's not really like daily per se, but I mean, you could set something up like that, like send someone out every 90 days. Like that's what we do with our company. We do a 90-day PM, but I mean, just a routine service would not hurt at all. I mean, it would only benefit you. So
Sure. Cool. That's all I have. Thank you.
I've got another questions and comments. Overall, I thought y'all did pretty well. My question is, how does the ability to store these systems and the durability of them compare to conventional power sources such as generators?
So I can kind of touch on this a little bit. That like the Beam teams kind of let us kind of a little bit know about that fully, but the main benefit of this product is going to be that it's fully off the grid entirely. So all this power that's being stored from solar panels and taken directly off the grid is being stored into batteries that are inside the containers. So a little bit, since I don't think y'all have heard a little bit, Team 7, about exactly how this product works is we're linking up multiple storage containers in order to create a microgrid that a small town or a construction site or something along those lines can physically run all their power off of. So you can kind of see the batteries there stacked up. They're going to be able to hold about a megawatt of electricity, and you can link those up as many as you need. And the solar panels also help replenish that over time.
So would they be able to be stored for years on end without use?
I'm not 100% sure, like the life expectancy of it, or like if there's like a roll off or any loss of electricity, but I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah.
I know batteries go bad after a while, but that would be the only thing I'd say that you'd have to check up on.
Okay, one more from Team 7. Anything else?
I just had a comment. Y'all did a really good job as far as transitioning goes. From one speaker to the next. It was a really seamless transition. Y'all didn't really get hung up on it, so good job. That was I noticed that went really well for y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Those are good comments. Elena, you want to go first, or?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, overall was very good presentation. I like the flow of the slides. I think it's always good to give a brief description of your project objective, because I could not remember it. So only when Joshua started speaking, you mentioned the targeted sales audience and the difference with the engineering team. So that was good. So remember that the audience is not as involved in the projects as you are. So it would have been good just to just address that quickly. I thought there was no need for Matthew to read the overview slide. Colin could have done that easily, and then Matthew did a very good job with the decision matrix. So again, I thought there was no need for that. The decision matrix, again, you explained it very well. I thought the table was not properly presented. You had different font types and sizes. Explain the scale. Again, do not assume that we know what you're talking about, right? So a little more complete details. I cannot pronounce your last name. Corday. Colefo. Okay. Good job with the solutions, but you mentioned spreading information. So I think you meant dissemination methods. So then your next slide addressed that. So that was good. So I didn't have to ask more questions. And I had the same comment as your client. Why not consider local and federal government, especially when we went through these grid issues here in Texas due to the weather. So makes your project very relevant. And I like the fact that you mentioned working with the engineering team a lot. One question I had: why not agriculture as one of your target industries?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? I missed
agriculture. Why didn't you consider agriculture as one of the industries? I'm just curious.
I mean, that would be a good one.
Yeah, to be honest, not 100% sure why. We're really just looking at the biggest ponds that had like the biggest clients. So, but agriculture is a big industry, and they could definitely be used on like cotton gins and stuff like that.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's an interesting comment. Agriculture would have a use for this. We think about migrant workers working out in a remote location. Probably an answer would be they may not have the deep pockets that some of the other industries, but that would be a good application as well. Okay, 13 minutes. I love the fact that you guys were here on time, virtually. You were ready to go. Your presentation style was good. Your slides were very well organized. Your presentation was well organized. I agree with Tristan. Good transitions between each of you. I'm going to ask you when we're done here what you about your self-critique. Hopefully, you all were able to look at your last presentation. I want to know what you did to improve, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I also, and I'm the one who graded your paper. And go back to your first slide. Let's look at the title of this presentation, because I was a little bit curious as the purpose of this project, or the name of this project. microgrid energy system. To me, that seems to imply that a larger purpose than what I saw in this project. So let me give you a chance, and let me start with Colin. Colin, what is the purpose of this project? What is your goal? What are you trying to do? Are you designing the microgrid energy system? I think the answer to that's no. So what is your role?
We're looking at like the business side of it. It's like right here, like flow analysis and what's actually like going through the whole business itself, and solutions to fix problems that we have, or marketing to new industries.
Right. Okay. I agree. I gathered that. I figured that out during the presentation, but it should have been stated a little more with clarity at the beginning. I think what's happened is, and this is good, and this is real world. You guys got this project. You begin working with your client and the Bain team, and you have a specific niche that you're working on. The business plan is the way I see it, and that's great. That is an excellent part of this project to be working on, and you need to state that more clearly instead of making us figure it out. It's one of these situations where you guys know it, but we didn't know that. Okay.
So are you suggesting like change microgrid energy system on the front slide, like change that name? Or
that might be one way, or simply in a restating the project description, a slide that says, we're focusing on the business plan for this system.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what your presentation was about. So that was that. Let me see here. Let me ask some more questions. Let me start with, okay, so Colin, I asked you a question. In your flow analysis, go to your flow analysis slides here. I like the fact that you gave an overview of the flow analysis. Go to your next slide. And you picked 3. You followed my instructions. That's exactly what I told you to do. There's one thing I told you to do that you didn't do. Anybody want to guess what it is? What's missing from this slide? Numbers. I have no idea how much electricity you're talking about, the capacity of this system. And just because another team is working on that does not absolve you of the responsibility to at least know some of those things, okay?
Yes, sir.
So, numbers, electric, go to your next slide. People, how many people, how many trucks, how many forklifts? What are these, go to the next slide, transportation. What would really be useful here, particularly, maybe the engineers don't know this, but, one aspect of transportation is how much do these things weigh? That's going to drive what type of transportation vehicle you have, and there may be some weight limits that you exceed, and you may need special permits. So your client would need to know that. So your flow analysis was missing numbers.
Okay.
So for example, I would ask you, what's the heaviest that one of these Connex boxes weighs? What's the heaviest weight you need to transport?
I don't know. I think I asked the Bain team that, and they never got back with me. But
okay, well, and you can ask that to your client too. So
yes,
that's all right. Okay, let's go to Cord, the potential solutions here. I like the fact that you've got a slide with all 3 potential solutions. I have to admit, though, these are all they seem a little underdeveloped.
Yes, sir.
This is all about marketing, but a business plan is more than just marketing. So I think your potential solutions are a little too narrow. Go to your next slide. This didn't really tell me much. So all I'm going to say here is your potential solutions are a little bit narrow.
More in detail.
Yeah, go to your last slide, Cord. Right there. Read that last bullet.
Trying to find that connection into a cell.
Into a what?
It should be, I misspelled that.
Right. Those words sound similar depending on what part of Texas you're from. Okay? But I think you're looking for the noun, not the verb. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So that's one of those things that is going to attack your credibility in front of a client. So when you guys are rehearsing this presentation, and you all should be looking at it, somebody should catch that, okay? So don't let that happen. Okay, let's go to Josh. Matthew's turn. Decision matrix. Again, Matthew, your decision matrix looks like it's comparing clients instead of potential solutions. So the purpose of the decision matrix is to compare potential solutions. Now, if your goal was in your potential solutions to focus on a business plan to different clients, that's a legitimate thing. But it's a little bit out of step here, because these are not the potential solutions that Colin or Cord presented. Matthew, let me ask you here. Well, no, I think I just answered. I was going to ask you, are you comparing potential solutions or clients? So I've already answered that. Okay, last one, Josh. Yeah. This is a good slide. I would call this an overview slide. You know, it doesn't cost any extra money to make more slides. So I would have given each of these three its own slide with maybe some pictures, some charts, but greater discussion. You spent 3 minutes on this slide when you probably should have had more here. All right. I thought your presentations are getting better. Josh, your voice was really good. Your grammar was a little rough, okay? I wrote down something you said. See this bullet right here, 700,000 companies? You said there is more than 700,000 companies, okay? You need subject-verb agreement. There are more than 700,000 companies. Why am I nitpicking? Because those are the things that you work out when you rehearse the presentation. So when you catch yourself struggling with how do I say this, it's because you haven't gone through it once or twice. So that's where you kind of work out those bugs about there are more than 700,000 companies, okay? So let me ask y'all, actually, I'll come back to the self-critique later. Yang, you have any comments?
Okay, we're running out of time.
Good. Let me ask you, and we'll start with Matthew. What did you learn from your self-critique that you improved on this presentation, or you tried to work on?
For this presentation, I cut out all the sentences. I did a little bit more rehearsing as far as the speaking part. For this presentation, I rehearsed about probably 6 or 7 times on my slide. In the previous presentation, I only rehearsed twice. It felt like I was able to communicate the information a lot more efficiently, a lot more comfortably than the last time.
Okay. Matthew, I think your voice, when you're presenting, you need a little more energy. You need some inflection. You tend to have a monotone. And when you and I are talking just like this, that's fine. But when you're doing a presentation, you got to flip a switch. And you need to size and pause and that kind of stuff. And you can rehearse that. Okay,
yes,
good.
Sir.
Colin, tell me what you tried to improve on this presentation.
I tried not to just read off the slides. I kind of had some other words to say that weren't on the slides. Like I emailed Mr. Boyd the other night, and we were talking about what type of container it was. It was a standard non-high cube container. That wasn't on the slide. I mean, I had other information to talk about.
Yeah, good. How about you, Cord?
Try to really cut down on like my ums and like my pauses. I know I paused one time during this PowerPoint, but I really just try to cut down on those, or like using the same words too, like over and over again, like to fill the words.